In the heart of the Bitterroot Valley, where the mountains clawed at the sky and the wind whispered secrets through the pines, a bobcat named Kale prowled the twilight. His fur, a tapestry of tawny brown dappled with shadow-dark spots, blended seamlessly with the underbrush. His eyes, twin embers glowing in the gloaming, scanned the forest floor with a predator's patience. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and cedar, and a faint chill hung like a promise of winter. Kale's muscles rippled beneath his coat, each step deliberate, silent, as if the ground itself conspired to muffle his approach. He was no ordinary bobcat, larger than most, with a scar slashing across his left ear from a battle with a coyote years ago. He carried an air of quiet menace, a creature forged by the wild's unyielding crucible. High above, perched on a gnarled branch of an ancient larch, sat an owl named Sable. Her feathers were a mosaic of ash and ivory, her eyes two golden moons that pierced the dusk. She was a great horned owl, solitary by nature, her life a rhythm of silent flights and sudden death delivered to unsuspecting voles. Tonight, though, her gaze was restless, darting to the shadows below. A strange unease prickled her feathers, as if the forest held its breath. She had seen Kale before, glimpsed his sleek form weaving through the undergrowth, but always at a distance. Tonight, the air felt different, charged, heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Kale's ears twitched. A faint rustle, imperceptible to most, betrayed Sable's presence. His head tilted upward, locking onto her silhouette against the fading indigo sky. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but it was more than that. Something primal stirred within him, a need to test the boundaries of his domain. Sable was no easy prey. Her talons could rend flesh, her wings could carry her beyond reach. But Kale was not driven by ease. He was driven by instinct, by the pulse of the hunt that thrummed in his veins like a drumbeat. He crept closer, his body low, weaving through ferns and over moss-slick stones. The forest was a cathedral of silence, save for the distant hoot of another owl, far off and unaware. Sable shifted on her perch, her talons gripping the bark. She sensed something, a disturbance in the rhythm of the night, but the source eluded her. Her eyes swept the ground, catching the faintest glint of movement, a flicker of tawny fur, gone as quickly as it appeared. She froze, her heart a steady thump against her fragile ribs. The forest was no stranger to danger, but this felt personal, as if the shadows themselves had turned predator. Kale paused at the base of the larch, his breath shallow, his body coiled like a spring. The tree loomed above, its bark rough and unyielding, but Kale was no stranger to climbing. His claws sank into the wood, and he ascended with a grace that belied his size. Each movement was a study in precision, his tail flicking for balance as he navigated the vertical maze. Sable's head swiveled, her eyes narrowing as she caught the soft scrape of claw on bark. Her wings twitched, ready to unfurl, but curiosity held her fast. What creature dared approach her perch? A raccoon, perhaps, or a reckless squirrel? She would teach it the cost of trespassing. But it was no raccoon. Kale's head crested the branch, his eyes locking with hers. For a heartbeat, time stopped. Sable's feathers puffed, a silent hiss escaping her beak. Kale's lips curled back, revealing the gleam of fangs. The distance between them was a mere leap, but it was a leap across a chasm of instinct and survival. Sable's wings snapped open, a prelude to flight, but Kale was faster. He lunged, a blur of muscle and intent, his claws outstretched. Sable twisted, her talons slashing, but Kale's weight bore down, pinning her to the branch. Her wings flailed, feathers scattering like snow, but his grip was iron. The struggle was brief but fierce. Sable's beak snapped at Kale's face, drawing a thin line of blood across his muzzle. He snarled, his strength overwhelming her lighter frame. With a final heave, he seized her by the neck, her body limp but not lifeless, her eyes still blazing with defiance. Kale did not kill her, not yet. Instead, he clamped his jaws gently but firmly and began his descent, Sable dangling from his maw like a trophy. The forest watched in silence, the pines swaying as if in judgment. Kale's den was a hidden cleft in a rocky outcrop, shrouded by brambles and draped with moss. He carried Sable through the undergrowth, her weight a strange burden, her heartbeat a faint pulse against his tongue. He did not know why he spared her life. Perhaps it was the fire in her eyes, or perhaps it was something older, deeper, a whisper of the wild that spoke of more than hunger. The den was warm, its air heavy with the scent of earth and old kills. Kale dropped Sable onto a bed of pine needles, her body crumpling but her gaze unbroken. She was injured, one wing bent at an unnatural angle, but she was alive. Sable glared at him, her chest heaving. She was no stranger to pain, but this was different. This was captivity, a violation of her solitude. She hissed, her voice a low rasp, but Kale only watched, his head tilted as if studying a puzzle. The bobcat circled her, his movements slow, deliberate. He did not pounce, did not strike. Instead, he settled onto his haunches, his eyes never leaving hers. The den was a prison, but it was also a stage, and the drama unfolding between them was unlike any the forest had seen. Outside, the night deepened, the stars sharp as knives against the velvet sky. A coyote howled in the distance, its cry unanswered. Sable's mind raced, searching for escape, for understanding. Why had he spared her? What did he want? Kale's silence was maddening, his presence a weight that pressed against her spirit. She shifted, testing her injured wing, and pain lanced through her like lightning. She stifled a cry, her pride refusing to break. Kale's ears flicked, catching the faint sound of movement beyond the den. The forest was alive, always watching, always waiting. He rose, his body tense, and slipped into the shadows, leaving Sable alone in the den. She strained to hear, her senses sharpened by fear and adrenaline. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig. Something was coming. Not Kale, but something else. Her heart pounded, her talons flexing against the pine needles. The forest had not finished with them yet. The den was a tomb of shadows, its air thick with the musk of earth and the faint tang of blood. Sable lay on the pine needle floor, her injured wing a throbbing weight, her golden eyes darting to the den's narrow entrance. The world outside was a cacophony of whispers, leaves rustling, wind moaning through the pines, and now a new sound, the soft crunch of paws on frost-kissed ground. Not Kale's stealthy tread, but something heavier, clumsier, yet no less dangerous. Sable's feathers bristled, her body tensing despite the pain. She was a creature of the sky, not meant for cages. Yet here she was, trapped in the bobcat's lair, her fate a thread stretched taut between survival and surrender. Kale had vanished into the night, his absence a puzzle as confounding as his decision to spare her. Sable's mind churned, piecing together the fragments of their encounter. The bobcat's eyes had held no malice, only a strange curiosity, as if she were more than prey, more than a fleeting challenge. But now, alone, she felt the weight of her vulnerability. Her wing, bent and useless, was a betrayal of her nature. She tested it again, wincing as pain seared through her. Escape was a distant dream, but Sable was no stranger to defiance. She dragged herself toward the den's entrance, her talons scraping the dirt, her breath a ragged hymn to her will. Outside, the forest was a tapestry of moonlight and menace. The approaching footsteps grew louder, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that sent a shiver through Sable's bones. She froze, her eyes narrowing as a shape emerged from the brambles. A coyote, its fur matted and gray, its eyes glinting with hunger. It was not the same coyote that had scarred Cale years ago, but it carried the same reckless greed. Its nose twitched, scenting the air, and Sable knew it had caught her trail. The coyote's lips peeled back, revealing yellowed fangs, and it stepped closer, its body low and tense. Sable's heart thundered, but she was no helpless prey. She puffed her feathers, making herself larger, and let out a hiss that cut through the night like a blade. The coyote hesitated, its ears flicking, but hunger drove it forward. It lunged, jaws snapping, and Sable struck back, her good wings sweeping forward to buffet its face, her talons raking its muzzle. The coyote yelped, stumbling back, but it was not alone. Another shadow moved in the darkness, a second coyote, smaller but no less vicious, circling to flank her. The den's entrance was too narrow for both to attack at once, but Sable knew she couldn't hold them off forever. Her strength was waning, her wing a dead weight dragging her down. She backed deeper into the den, her eyes locked on the first coyote as it prowled closer, its growls a promise of pain. The second coyote darted in, testing her, and Sable snapped her beak, catching its ear and drawing blood. The air was thick with the scent of iron and fear, and Sable's world narrowed to this moment, this fight, this refusal to yield. Then, a blur of motion erupted from the shadows. Cale. The bobcat's return was a storm of fury, his body a missile of muscle and claw. He crashed into the first coyote, his jaws clamping onto its shoulder, his claws tearing through fur and flesh. The coyote howled, twisting to fight back, but Cale was relentless, his movements a dance of savage precision. The second coyote hesitated, then lunged, but Cale was ready. He released the first, spinning to meet the second with a snarl that shook the air. His claws slashed, sending the smaller coyote scrambling back, blood dripping from its flank. Sable watched, her breath caught in her throat, as Cale fought with a ferocity that bordered on the divine. He was not just defending his den, he was defending her. The realization hit her like a thunderclap, stirring something deep within her, a mix of awe and unease. Why would a predator risk himself for her, a creature meant to be his prey? The first coyote lunged again, its jaws snapping at Cale's throat, but he dodged, his body a fluid shadow, and countered with a bite that sent the coyote reeling. The second coyote, seeing its companion falter, turned and fled into the night, its yips fading into the distance. The first coyote was not so wise. It charged again, desperate, and Cale met it head-on. The clash was brutal, a whirlwind of snarls and blood. Cale's scar burned red against his fur, a reminder of battles past, but this time he was unstoppable. With a final, bone-crunching bite, he brought the coyote down, its body limp in the dirt. Cale stood over it, chest heaving, his eyes blazing with a fire that seemed to light the very air. He turned to Sable, his gaze softening, though his body remained taut, ready for another threat. Blood matted his fur, but he stood tall, a guardian carved from the wild itself. Sable's heart raced, her mind a storm of questions. She wanted to speak, to demand answers, but her voice was a prisoner of her owl's nature. Instead, she met his gaze, her eyes burning with a mix of gratitude and defiance. Cale stepped closer, his nose twitching as he scented her wounds. He did not touch her, did not crowd her space, but his presence was a weight, a promise, a mystery. The forest was silent now, the coyote's threat gone, but the night was far from over. Kale dragged the dead coyote's body away, leaving Sable alone once more. She listened to the scrape of its carcass against the ground, her mind racing. She was no longer just a captive. She was part of something larger, something the forest itself seemed to orchestrate. When Kale returned, his muzzle clean but his eyes still fierce, he settled near the den's entrance, his body a barrier between her and the world. Sable's wing throbbed, but her spirit burned brighter. She shifted, dragging herself closer to Kale, her talons clicking against the stone. He turned, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, the predator and the prey were equals, bound by a thread neither could name. The forest held its breath, the stars above witnesses to a story unwritten, a bond forged in blood and defiance. And then, from the depths of the night, a new sound, a low, eerie hum, like the earth itself was singing. Sable's feathers prickled, and Kale's ears flattened. Something was coming, something older than the forest, and it would change them both forever.